I would instead want to move the conversation forward and start with a conclusion. Two things I'd like to say. First is that all of us should be very careful about the things that we do that have the potential to undermine the pillars of our democracy. Second is that I would even urge the majority to be very accommodating of the minority views when the full debate commences on Tuesday. And I do know that I think leadership has already had some conversations to that effect. Indeed, yesterday the majority leader signaled and advised that we will be expecting to have a smooth debate on the floor. Despite my colleagues' abdication of their duties, we need to show maturity. We need to take the higher ground so that we avoid what is becoming a race to the bottom. I've heard colleagues, as I mentioned, who say they will obstruct the minority from expressing their views. But as I've mentioned, we need to quickly move forward so that the real intent of what Article 67 requires us to do can be achieved. Now, there's one question that is, I think, above all been floating. Is the walkout by the minority justified at all in any way? And we have heard the various explanations, including the very latest by my good friend, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, that the presence of the SWAT team, I think, at the precincts of Parliament is part of their reasons. First of all, I say that this walkout was ill-conceived. It was ill-conceived because you observe the various reasons they have given at every point in time, and it's obvious that even they themselves cannot agree on a specific cogent reason for which they did it. Almost every opportunity, they give a different reason. They change reasons, and I say, in one particular, I say almost every hour they are changing the reason for which they did that. And what now they've resorted to is a post-facto rationalization of what they did. Because if you take the antecedents and the reasons that they gave, it doesn't match the kind of action that they sought to embark on. First of all, when the Honorable Samson Ahe held a press conference at the beginning of the week, the reason that he gave, that they will be staging either a boycott or a walkout because district assemblies common fund allocations had not been paid, sounded absurd. And all of us agree that yes, though at the time the monies hadn't hit the accounts, abdicating Article 67 responsibility is not the answer. And I'll go into that a bit more later. Then later, after they actually received the president, ushered him into the chamber, at the end of the national anthem, came up with a chorus and literally caused this embarrassment. Their first explanation was that they wanted to ignore the president because he has been ignoring some matters that are of interest to them. Then they had another one where they talk about their view that the entire body of recommendations of the Ayawaso West Wogon inquiry report should be implemented. And you would expect that these are legislators, many of them are lawyers, and they know the position of the law on Commission of Inquiry reports. And the fact that the law does not even back that view that once a Commission of Inquiry has issued a report, simpliciter A to Z, everything in it will be A, accepted, or B, implemented. The law gives room for government to express a certain view and even act on what it chooses or what it agrees with. They have had an opportunity to be in government. The law didn't change then. It hasn't changed now. It's still the same law. They now went on to another excuse that the president has shut down radio stations, another absurd reason because the president has not shut down radio stations. We're all clear. The NCA fined people. They went to court. The court agreed with that class action that the NCA didn't have the power to fine them. And then as a consequential order, or as a consequential explanation, the court said they don't have the power to fine you because by failing to renew the license, you have actually relinquished it. And NCA had to proceed therefrom and then ensure that these stations, which were at that time operating without a license, cease from it.
The NCA's tribunal, electronics tribunal, is what you refer to as the court.
That is.
All right.
Then now they came to the other excuse of the, in fact, there was one about Charlotte to say, why did you sack Charlotte to say, if you, and everybody knows the process, the internal challenges of the EC, the petitions, the cross petitions they made against themselves and what happened. Then they come up with a new register. So it's a whole myriad of changing or adding reasons. It was obvious that they wanted to do this. And post facto, they've been finding, reasons for it. But why I say that it is not justified or it doesn't match what they did, even if these arguments have some foundation, it's simple. You see, the mandate of Article 67 is not in the normal course of parliamentary business. The normal course of parliamentary business, the standing orders, regulators. I can come by statement, somebody can bring a motion, we may have a report of a committee, there may be a resolution we are considering. Those are the normal course of parliamentary business. And we disagree on it, there may be walkouts, there may be boycotts associated with that. But if you look at our constitution, Article 67 imposes an obligation on the president to perform. And my reading of the entire constitution picks it up even from the principle of probity and accountability. That we must have a platform where the president will account to the country through parliament for what has transpired, part of which we'll be doing today. So the Article 67 obligation on the president is not in the normal course of parliamentary business. Indeed, in my understanding, it is a constitutional obligation that the president has to perform. And if I just may read, it says the president, it doesn't say may, the president shall, at the beginning of each session of parliament and before a dissolution of parliament, comma, deliver to parliament a message on the state of the nation. So it imposes an obligation on the president, it imposes an obligation on parliament. Parliament meaning the entire body of parliament. Indeed, by convention, we have even stepped it up forward by now ensuring that the entire judiciary or the head of the judiciary is present. The Supreme Court judges are present, the scale of justice is brought there. You'll find that the president, staff of office, vice president, everybody, the former president, everybody, it ceases to be one of our normal parliamentary dances that we're having. And it is a sacred national duty that we are all invited to come perform. So even if these arguments you are making are valid, there are many legal options to express them and to get redress to them than to say that you are abdicating your Article 67 obligation that is imposed on you by the Constitution of our Republic. If you read a bit further into perhaps, maybe I'll start from the oath of office that a member of parliament takes. And with your permission, let me just read. It says, I, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, having been elected a member of parliament, do in the name of the Almighty God swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Republic of Ghana as by law established, that I will uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, including this Article 67 obligation. And I will faithfully and conscientiously discharge the duties of a member of parliament. And my understanding is that if you look at the spirit of what the Constitution seeks to do when it comes to constitutional obligations, look at Article 2, the entirety of Article 2. When a person commits an act or fails to commit or to do something that the Constitution requires him to do, you see the severity of the sanctions that the Constitution breathes on it. So Article 67 obligations, in my view respectfully, should not be taken as, you know, a matter that I feel this way or I feel that way. I hear them sometimes say that they are doing what the MPP did in 2013. Two things I'll say to that. First of all, what happened in 2013 is remarkably different from what happened in Parliament, I think, a couple of days ago, in 2013.
How?
The MPP, when it argued that it was challenging the legitimacy of the man, John Dramani Mahama, as president, argued that it could not, it as a party, could not cooperate with him in any of the functions that he seeks to perform in his capacity as president, because they fundamentally disagree with that EC declaration that was made. And therefore, they were proceeding to the Supreme Court to get that declaration. Now, watch what happened. Not only did they not participate generally in that address, they didn't disrupt it. Secondly, you'll find that they continued through with a number of national activities that were to be done by Mr. Mahama at that time, in consonance with what they were doing in court, and argued that they did not want to undermine their court process in any way.
Is that not even worse?
I'll come to that conclusion.
Is that scenario not even worse?
I'll come to that conclusion.
Where you have put your case in court, and your case is being addressed, and then you take this posture.
I'll come to that conclusion. Their view was that by participating in anything that will legitimize his presidency, they were undermining their case in court.
There's no legal basis for that view.
And they did not proceed to disrupt any of his activities nonetheless. Now, you notice that when the court ruled that they were wrong, they quickly went back to now doing business with him as president. In the case of Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, nobody is challenging his presidency. There are no qualms, even from the minority side, about the fact that he's a legitimately elected president. If he's a legitimately elected and sworn-in president, you haven't challenged that, and he's coming to Parliament to perform a constitutional duty, and then you raise some of these issues that these are your little issues for which you won't participate, it sounds to everybody as laughable. Now, my final point. If you say that, and in those days, if you say that what the MPP did was wrong, it was such a low standard, it was terrible, how can you, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, when you say that you want to offer a better alternative to governance, now say that you now want to go and stoop so low?
Good question. So you have asked one of my questions to John already.
But most importantly, moving forward, I think leadership is agreeing that, listen, let's put these things behind us. These are things that lower our bars as, MPs.
You may have the opportunity to state this briefly before we end the discussion on this matter. Hold on.